Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So this is the case which we had 60-year-old male presented with pulmonary coughs around 25 years ago and had a cough in January 2021. CT scan thorax had a higher mass with gross field diffusion. Then you have bony mets and also ascites and omental deposits. Pleural fluid cell block, metastatic adenocarcinoma, ALK positive on IHC, and PCR was sent, and that was exon 21, L858R positive. Started on Ceritinib plus Gefitinib. Starting with, again, that question which we talked about. What is your initial testing method, Dr. Prasad? Altogether, one by one, or simple one NGS and you get all reports?
So we usually send the panel. So when we get the reports, mostly it is the EGFR, ALK, ROS1 in that order which we get.
Okay. Dr. Sahu?
Yeah, for me, I have shifted and feel more comfortable now with NGS because one-time test, do everything. And more important for me, why I'm doing it is that as was spoken by the previous panel, we do pick up those uncommon mutations which are missed many times by these other tests. And second thing is that if I have to plan immunotherapy, I would be very sure I'm not missing anything that is targetable. So my response to immunotherapy is probably I'll be doing ideal way of adding immunotherapy to the first line. So that is why I feel more comfortable with NGS nowadays.
Thank you. Dr. Biswas?
Dr. Biswas just logged out. He'll log in again, sir.
No, when he joins back, we'll again trouble him. So, Dr. Sahu and Dr. Prasad, this was one question which came up from a panelist. How do you check the quality? Or do you check the quality? Or do you think these are something which is missing and these are certain information we should be requesting the lab to share with us? Dr.
Sir, to me or Dr. Sahu?
To you, if you do NGS regularly?
Not much, not very regularly. Let Dr. Sahu take it.
Okay.
Okay. So for NGS, there is an issue of the, as we look at the control, NGS has an issue, still controls are being decided and that is an issue. But we need to look into the depths. That is something of the depth of the read is something which you need to do. Number of reads is something which is very important. And you have to also look into allele frequencies should be noted. Just a positive, negative is not good enough for me for NGS. So I need the number of reads, the depth, and the allele frequencies. I think that is something which is something very, very important. And that is where I would be more comfortable if these are there. And that is where I should be. At this point, I think that is what I three things I look at. If not missing, if missing, I ask the lab to provide me that. Yeah, Dr. Kumar.
Yes, Dr. Sahu. So I think so. There was a Dr. Sahu brought out an important issue about the quality control. So in general, certain things are common in what we have in PCR and here. That starting from the tissue, and a good lab should be persuaded to provide it. So what was the starting material? Was it frozen or blocked? Was it was there 20% or 10%? How much tumor was there in that DNA? What was the quantity of DNA which was there in those? What is the quality? And here it becomes far more important. And quality you check twice, once when you have the DNA and when they share it, when they break it. Then again, what was the quality of the DNA? That is, what was the length size of those DNA which was put into for PCR and then NGS. And then comes what was you had library preparation. After library preparation, when you have the report, what was the pipeline used to analyze? Does the pipeline is routine? If they have used some pipeline means what? That you have a software which gives you many information regarding what is there. And when they compared this mutation, positive and negative control was there or not? Did they run the NGS when they run as a duplicate or not? When they had the comparison, when the data came out as compared to what was the data set for the comparison, means what was the normal DNA sequencing taken from for them, how they have got this, the whatever panel they have developed, how they have validated it. These are all very important steps, and absolutely, I think so. In as far as the lung is concerned, I have no doubt that cost-effective NGS is the way to go. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But these certain steps, I keep persuading the labs whomever I work with to share with it. And I assure you, they share all these data when there is a project work. All this data is completely shared because before they share this data, the project sample doesn't go to those labs. So I'm sure as a clinician also one can request, because the data is there. They don't have to do extra work. Only the data has to be provided. So again, emphasizing that if we do NGS testing, and someone mentioned that there are a number of labs, and that becomes a tricky situation. That how do you trust which lab we should be blinded and be sending those samples? No, we shouldn't be blinded. We should be asking for this quality control in these testing. So this was regarding NGS. How common is Dr. Prasad seeing the multiple mutation at a time in your?
I have seen only one multiple mutations. I have not seen it very commonly. And
what was it?
It was both EGFR and ALK mutation was there. It was exon 19 and ALK both in one patient.
Okay. And what did you do?
So this was a second opinion which came to me, and the patient was already started on EGFR TKI, and the patient had a response at around 4 months when they came to me. And I told that since you have a response, let us continue that. And I didn't suggest a combination treatment at that point of time. That was the question which they came to me for. And I couldn't find any great data to say that a combination when the patient is responding to one line of therapy is what is to be recommended. Because I saw your patient who was getting a combination of Ceritinib plus Gefitinib in that case which you just showed.
For me, Dr. Kumar, I have two cases. One I could treat, and one I could not follow up the patient. The other one has been ALK and EGFR mutation, and I went on to treat the first patient with EGFR TKI, and I'm sure it was Gefitinib at that point. We were 2 years back. This is still on the follow-up. Did not respond, progressed within 2 months. I went on to treat the patient with Crizotinib, had a fairly good progression with survival of around beyond 1 year, then progressed, then Ceritinib. Now the patient is progressed Ceritinib after 8 months of Ceritinib. So I'd send a NGS on the progression from a metastatic site. Because I have started doing that because there's data to tell us that post-ALK, if you progress, then the mutation patients do better with Lorlatinib than those who do not have a mutation. They pick up the additional mutation. So this time, the patient does not have any additional resistant mutation. It has an ALK still. So being planned for Lorlatinib somewhere. So that is my patient for 2 years who has responded to ALK, although had 2 mutations positive.
Thank you, Dr. Sahu. So, and this is the way it will be because the information will be in bits and parts in this situation. We had around 20 odd patients, and Dr. Prasad, we also used to use sequentially. And if you ask me, do we know the answer? We don't. Only problem for us has been what Dr. Sahu talked about. So if I've treated patient with Crizotinib and if the patient progresses, what do I do? Do I go to before that, when you don't have a second, third line treatment, it was easier for us, give EGFR TKI or vice versa. Start Gefitinib. If they progressive disease, go to Crizotinib. Now, in both the scenarios, especially for ALK, when you have Ceritinib available and Lorlatinib available, and that was some discussion we had. There was one case report reported by someone abroad, and that is what we took it up to start this combination. What we can definitely share that is safer to give, and we were very worried initially that when we started in the first patient, we used to call them every week for almost 2 months because the person was from Mumbai. And then we realized it is safer. So now we have given few, not many, again, a few means 3-4 is, all we can say. But we can say, I can't say for efficacy, but it is safer to give.
Yeah, Kumar Vishwas
I
here.
was missing you. We were missing you.
No,
Go
so
ahead.
I just got here disconnected. So
Go
I
ahead.
had actually two such patients on EGFR or EGFR ALK positive. So one from TMH only, you were seeing the patient. So at that point of time, you started her on allotinib. She was not responding.
Yes.
But by that time, so we didn't have any ALK inhibitors in the country. So by the time actually the crizotinib arrived, so this patient expired. The other patient is a young 30-year Jawan from Indian Defense. So he was started in an army hospital with gefitinib. So he has a multiple skeletal metastasis, non-smoker. So he came to me after 6 months or so. So I saw a Dabar OncoQuest report of both EGFR and ALK. So I added crizotinib to that patient, and he continued gefitinib, allotinib, absolutely no much toxicities for 3 years or so. So post 3 years, he had a brain progression. He had progression in brain, and he had a skeletal symptoms also. So by that time, so I wrote a note to the army hospital, and he got a compassionate lorlatinib. So so now he's almost 4.5 years, 5 years now. So he's on gefitinib plus lorlatinib, and that took for last 1.5 years or so.
Okay, so that was a very nice. This is why I like panel discussion. You get to know so many things from your colleagues around, different things, different ways of doing, and one can use in the practice when we go back. So thank you, Dr. Vishwas, on that. Next question: do you? I'll come back to one of the more important interpretations of fusion in the NGS, and this I learned in the molecular tumor board, which we do on a weekly basis. That allele frequency is important. It's very important when you have those mutations. In fusion, allele frequency has a less value, and what you do is rather than having those allele frequency, what we measure for percentages, the read count becomes important. And one of the things we learned that in fusion, very small read counts in NGS is also very important. So here it was a good read count, 787. But in case you have a read count in 10, 12, 15 also, because the fusion is a very rare event in solid tumor, so it should be taken seriously. And that's what I learned when my molecular tumor board that's sharing. Coming back to panelists, any other combination you have seen? EGFR, KRAS, different EGFR, 19, 21, 19, 20, 18, 21 in your practice?
Somehow KRAS has been the most common. That's what the literature reports, 4% around. But somehow I have not seen a KRAS, although I will accept that I have been starting doing NGS recently. So that's why we might have been missing, because till now we have been doing the one panel each. So we very rarely you will get those uncommon mutations except for EGFR ALK, because now the KRAS no one has really looked for. So that could be the reason we are getting less of KRAS, which is reported in the literature to be the most common co-mutation. I think that's my answer should be. I have not seen any other co-mutation.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Sahu. Same here.
Okay.
Yeah, Kumar.
And different mutations, exon 19 plus 21, 18 plus 20.
Kumar, exon dual exon, at least EGFR. At least I have 5 or such odd cases. So where you can see 1921, 1820, both rare. It is there.
So any last comment by panelists on this multiple mutations in their practice?
So I think it is a difficult scenario. The field is evolving, less number of cases. I would not that the combination will be the gold standard at this point of time. I think there are most of the case reports have gone sequential, one after one. A lot of case reports I've seen through have gone for EGFR to be active, EGFR TK active. But in my experience and speaking to colleagues even in Tata, I found that even ALK EGFR is there, ALK looks to be the more dominant carcinogenic pathway. And that's what has happened in my case. So that is my small take on the limited experience I have.
We are not certain, but I agree with you, Dr. Sahu. Your thought process, I agree with you. We have been looking why it looks like that way, but yes. So this showing example, if your allele frequency like this, if your lab gives you a positive report, you should be concerned. In fusion, if they give you a positive report, ask them how many reads were positive. these may help you knowing that it was really positive or not, and that's the reason I wanted this.
Can we last question? Can we take a read of 500 to be enough?
500 will be very good read.
Very
500 reads, in fusion, if it is, this a read count is 500 for that fusion, is excellent. For fusion, is the read count. So depth is different, read count is different.
Yeah.
Here, the depth you can see, the depth was around 1169. That's a
Yes,
different one.
yes.
But the read count out of that, if you have a 20 in fusion, it is good. It is, you should be, you should not, ignore that.
Okay.
It is absolutely that, by and large, positive. If the lab gives you in 100 a positive report and it becomes negative, then you should be concerned about lab. Because I repeat, fusion is an uncommon event. So if it is seen, very unlikely that it will be a noise. Mutations are not so uncommon. So sometimes we are worried about unless we have a good allele frequency.
So basically, are you telling it's a known fusion or even is a known fusion?
Known
if it is
fusion.
there, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Dr. Sahu really asked a very relevant question. Known fusion, if it is there, I totally agree. Unknown one in that tumor, be careful. Absolutely.
Kumar, can I make a comment or a question? This is Hemant Mathur from Jaipur. Am I permitted to organize this?
Sir, please go ahead, sir.
So I mean, the clinician or the practicing medical oncologist is already loaded with so many things, so many new drugs. Don't you think it is appropriate and possibly important that the lab which is doing your NGS for you has a molecular biologist on board who gives you an interpretation of all the permutation combinations? Of course, you should know that. But wouldn't it simplify things if a trained expert a molecular oncologist or a molecular biologist interprets the NGS for you rather than you having to spend 1 hour on it? Question.
Sir, I totally agree with you, sir. And the problem is that whatever I have understood on this front is neither the clinician nor the lab people are willing to take initiative. But looks like the lab people are only willing to take initiative if the clinician pushes them. If they start having dialogue with them, then they are willing to put things in structured way, and then it is easier to see that report. So I think somewhere where this is where I put onus on us. I agree with you, sir. We won't understand everything, and this I learn every week in my molecular tumor board. My lab colleague comes up with some jargon, and again we request them, please make us understand what it means, at least so we understand their lingo. But where I always fault ourselves is that we are not requesting them, hey, please make a format, put those so that we are able to tick those when we see them and we don't realize, oh, report is good and what I'm treating based on report is the right report.
And please remember, Kumar, that you are working at one of the top centers of the country and you have the luxury of having so many people, lab people as well as clinical people with you. And think of the like less privileged medical oncologist or oncologist in category B, C cities.
Sir, I totally agree with you, sir. I have no doubt. Just being in Tata, I am privileged. I totally agree with you, and that allows lots of resources, which helps me in getting things done faster, easier, and learning also happens far easier than I do understand, sir. And that's why again, as a ISMPO or ICON, with 15, 20 of us or 30 of us, we need to request the labs to give report in a certain format. And I agree, onus is on them, but my feeling is that discussion with them, that most likely looks like the request needs to go from our side, sir. Yeah. If there is no other comment from the panelists, any last comment from the panelists? If none, then Dr. Prasad, Dr. Sahu, and Dr. Biswas, thank you so much for being part of this panel. Please be around and please contribute in the subsequent part of the case.